Meow. Welcome to another review, kittens. Considering the internet's obsession with cats, it's interesting in retrospect that it took this long for a high-budget game to come out where you just play as a cat. I guarantee that somebody has looked at this game's success and is making a dog version. For those of you who are unaware, Stray is a third-person, or I guess third cat, adventure game where you play as a cat who has been separated from its cat family after falling into an ancient underground city. After losing one of your 9 lives, you encounter B12, this little FPV drone dude who also needs your help with uncovering the mysteries of the city and recovering his memories. He becomes your companion on your journey and helps you unlock doors, serves as your inventory, and helps you talk to the current denizens of the city, a collection of human-like robots. Not only is their society and existence itself an interesting mystery, but they add a lot of charm and uniqueness to the game. Despite the fact that they have TVs for faces, their body language does a great job at portraying their emotions. While their stories aren't as deep as the ocean, talking to them can reveal some interesting lore, and their perspectives help flesh out the world. The game is very linear and mostly structured around exploring and solving puzzles to help NPCs, some of which share your quest to escape the city. Some sections are straight shots where you have to avoid enemies to get to the end, while others like the slums or midtown are more open-ended, where you have to solve all the puzzles in the area to progress. I really loved the city. It's this tight-packed mess of buildings and machinery. It felt like there was such a unique blend of influences in the environmental design. Some areas really reminded me of Half-Life 2, some reminded me a lot of Metro 2033, while some others had an almost cyberpunk-like aesthetic. The areas actually aren't that big, but your smaller and lower to the ground perspective as a cat, as well as the excellent environmental design, make them seem much larger than they are. Exploring these open areas was the highlight for me, and I think that the very first of them, the slums, was actually the best in terms of gameplay. The way that this level makes use of the cat's ability to climb adds a ton of depth to the gameplay, as you aren't just staying at ground level, but seamlessly moving up and down to and from the rooftops in ways that humanoid characters can't. AC units, railings, and narrow ledges become ladders that let you climb and explore with ease. I wish that this verticality was explored more in the third major area, as you tend to stay at ground level much more there, and I think that the way that the game made me think about navigating the world was one of the more interesting experiences. While of course there are still moments like this throughout the game, it feels like they didn't really develop the idea much further past the start. That being said, the movement is incredibly simple. Once you've positioned yourself correctly, a prompt will just appear on the surface that you're trying to jump to, and once you press X, you'll just jump to it perfectly. Unfortunately, if you expected a cat version of Assassin's Creed with elegant free running, you won't find it here. While it would have been nice to have more complicated movement, it's understandable that they went this direction to keep the cat looking more realistic. This simple movement also makes the gameplay very accessible. So I'd say this game is pretty good for someone who's not very tech savvy or a gamer, because in addition to the gameplay being very easy, the puzzles were also pretty simple as well. Kind of going back to what I mentioned before, the environments are just beautifully detailed. There's a lot of litter and other physics objects all over the place. You knock things off shelves as you climb, building interiors are fully realized when they're accessible, and the lighting throughout the levels just enhances the atmosphere. It really helps to make the world feel lived in, as well as sell the feeling of being a cat. The devs have also included some optional interactables like scratching your claws on furniture or rubbing against the robot's legs. And I mean, what's not to love here? It's a cat, and it's being cute, and it's doing cute cat things. Besides the main puzzles, you can also find fragments of B12's memory. These collectibles are the only side content in the game and really reward exploration with some interesting lore. Most aren't too hard to find, but by the end of my playthrough, I still had a few missing. Through my 4 to 5 hour playthrough, I only encountered a few bugs, mainly just issues with going through a certain path or not being able to jump to a certain thing I needed to. But luckily, checkpoints and saving is extremely generous, so I was pretty easily able to just reload a checkpoint to fix it. I also really like how the game tells you how far away the last checkpoint or save was. More games that don't let you go back and see individual autosaves should implement this feature so that you can see how far back you're going to go if you need to reload. In Stray's case, I only ever went back a minute or two. There were some things in the game which I felt were underdeveloped or just weirdly dropped, but I can't really talk about them without spoiling the mid to late game, so skip to the timestamp on screen if you want to avoid any spoilers. Normally I would just say this stuff in a vague, non-spoilery way, but I feel like a lot of the enjoyment of this game comes from experiencing it blind for the first time, so skip ahead if you don't want to ruin that for you. So first off, I think that the giant Zerk eye in the basement of the city is a giant missed opportunity for a puzzle boss fight. It's kind of weird how we just see it in a cutscene and then it's just like not mentioned again. And after that section, the Zerks are kind of just like forgotten about, and the AI Sentinels were just not as intriguing in my opinion. Although I will say that the Sentinels' gameplay and puzzles was much more challenging. Zerks basically just run at you like Half-Life head crabs and you dodge them or kill them, while stealthing around the Sentinels' tracking was actually something that required a little bit of thought. In terms of the ending, I also thought it was weird that while you save the day, open the bunker, there's still an eldritch abomination down there in the basement. I mean, if the Zerks evolve to withstand sunlight, we have a literal Zerg swarm on our hands, guys. More mechanics-wise, it's also a shame that the Zerk killing beam is completely abandoned. It would have been cool to maybe go on a side quest so that we could modify it to fight against the Sentinels. Perhaps instead of, killing them, it would distract them for a little bit. With all that being said, I think that this game is great overall and worth the play if you're interested. It is a pretty short game, as I mentioned before, only around 4 to 5 hours on a first playthrough. While the game could have been lengthened a little bit with more complex areas, puzzles, and mechanics, it doesn't wear out its welcome with the content that's there. I felt that the game ended just as soon as I was losing my interest, which is good, and it's priced accordingly for its length at around $30, so it's up to you to determine how much 4 to 5 hours is worth for you. Keep in mind that I don't really think that this game is very replayable unless you're going for achievements. Even then, I think that's only around like 9 hours or something. If you like cats and want a cool little short game with a beautiful world, get this game. 10 out of 10 because that is a dedicated meow button. Help me out by leaving a like or a comment. And if you want to see more, subscribe for more artisanal, homebrewed gaming content.